the minutes, and we're going to call the meeting of December 15th of the Racial Equity and Justice Task Force to order. Members present are Jason, Sandra, Innie, Gina, Nancy, Doug, and then we have ad hoc members at large, Ryan, and Kathy and Dan. And we have a special guest visitor in Lenasia. Welcome. So who would like, well, let's just do, we're a group. I'm not going to keep putting this out there each week only to feel rejected. So let's say together, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And together we say, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the December 3rd regular meeting?
Yes, you do.
Motion to approve.
Innie will make the motion, and Jason, do I have a second?
Second.
Jason seconds the motion. Any discussion, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any noes? Any abstentions? Yes, Ryan, thank you. It is majority, but if you look at Robert's rules, it's somewhat vague too. And I think this is the problem. And I don't think we've ever fully decided. Okay. And I think I'll move away from the central station. That is my family kitchen. Okay. So deep listening update. Sandra, do you want to just tell us what you started to tell us?
Yep. So I got a bunch of interviews today, and there's a lot of information. So I would really like more time to synthesize all of it, but just quickly looking at some of the common threads, and some of them are pretty glaring common threads. One big thing was surrounding recruitment, hiring, and employee review policies. Someone noted that job opportunities didn't seem to be easily accessible or overly publicized. And so they were suggesting that we figure out ways to rectify that. So that was one of the big policies, that one of the big threads that I saw a lot of people commenting on. I found out that, well, I was told by a few different people that police policies, the Fairfield police policies, exceed any of the state requirements. So things like they all have body cameras. We banned chokeholds years ago. The retention of records that is much longer than it is required. They have diversity training. They do community outreach programs. So a lot of the police policies have been very proactive in Fairfield.
So if I could help guide Doug as you're taking notes, what Sandra is telling us, I just want to pause if I could. Steve, for the beginning part, at least at this stage, has agreed to keep the bones of the blueprint, to start the bones of the blueprint, the skeleton, so that we're not reinventing the wheels we discussed last time. So Doug, if you could figure out just structuring the notes, because I think that this is a great kind of, however it's organized, obviously the police and all these deep listening topics would kind of be like headlines for Steve. So if you could organize your notes in such a way that Sandra is kind of bulleting kind of some of the pros and the positives with the police, but like the recruitment is clearly an area. So this is more just about structuring, so that, again, we should now always be thinking how we're going to structure that plan.
So Nancy, what I did was I sort of took the survey that we filled out. And so it was like, okay, these are the policies that they were talking, or these are the suggestions. these are the things that people feel these are the people that we should be including in the surveys. And then I do have a section for blueprint suggestions. So,
Amazing, perfect.
yeah, so that's just, I would really, I need more time to go through all of it. So
If you look at Karen's timeline, like we have some time. Like that's what these next weeks are, and I know it goes over a break. And we can talk about what the next what like the homework over the next 3 weeks will look like. So you definitely have time.
I'm a teacher, so I live in a world of urgency. So, everything is like, I need more time. So, okay, I just starting with the policies, the job opportunities, blah, blah, blah. Oh, one thing that they did suggest, I saw many interviews suggested for us to include for the deep listening and also for the survey itself, that we should be including faith-based organizations, specifically McKinley School administrators and teachers, because obviously that's our most culturally diverse school, and then also the police. Let's see. Survey suggestions for the survey was to talk about affordable housing, the town feel, and also the awareness and the discussions that are happening in town, how people perceive themselves, so you get a sense of what's going on in the town. And some people believe that we don't recognize our own biases, which is, I'm sure, true. It's hard to turn a mirror on yourself. And the woman, Lori Pasternak, is that how you say her name, Innie? Where'd you go? Innie, were you the one that interviewed her?
Dan and I, the one from Fairfield Museum.
Okay, so she was the one that she offered to review our survey before we released it, which I thought was great. I mean, I always think another set of eyes after we've done it is great. So I think we should definitely take her up on that. And that's, so getting back to the blueprint suggestion, or suggestions, one thing, and like I said, Doug, this is kind of rudimentary right now. One blueprint suggestion was that we should be reviewing resources, marketing, and higher criteria for the town and municipal jobs. And another one said that there should be someone who oversees police and firefighter recruitment and hiring processes. So, I mean, I would assume that it would be someone from the force that would be overseeing that. But I mean, I don't know that, that was what was the comment. So
let me ask you something. At the risk of selling our friends here on the task force out, which I'm totally fine with, lovingly, of course. Who are we? Are you waiting still for results based on who was assigned? Or you're still waiting for some people to turn it in?
I'm still waiting for some people to turn their surveys in, and I did. I got I got something from Doug like a week ago, and then I got a whole bunch today.
Okay.
That's hard when, just getting like 8 of them today to go through them all. I was in the process of, teaching and being sick. So it's not the easiest to get through it all. So that's all.
All right. So I think that in terms of the next step is obviously in the immediate, like the next few days by Friday. And let us know if you need help nudging. We'll send a group email to the group, just reminding people. And then it's getting together Sandra with Karen and Alex and Sonia, I think, to take those survey results to kind of help feed that information to Steve. It sounds like you've set it up in just a great way that, and anyone else that's interested in working with Steve to kind of build out the bones of the blueprint, to flesh it out, and then to get with Karen, Sonia, and Alex to start taking those results and flipping them into a survey of some kind, because our next step is the town survey, is my understanding. Is that everyone else's understanding?
Yes,
Given the timeline?
Yeah.
So-
Nancy, I have a question, and this relates. I haven't sent in the interviews which I have done. They're all ready, but I wanted clarity. Are these going to be public records? Because their names are there, and some of them have been very candid and asked me. They've said this in confidence. So I need to know, is it going to be what they have said in public records?
So I would definitely de-identify any of these surveys. We should not be recording. You know, we can keep track for ourselves of who they are, but anything that goes into the public record, you should take out anything that would identify the person. So, you know, if they give a name, or if they say, you know, if they say, I am a parent at McKinley, you would say, I'm a parent at an elementary school. So we want to de-identify people as much as we possibly can.
So Sandra, does that mean when I send these to you, I de-identify them and send them to you, or you need to know who they are? Clarity there.
I
think
that you would keep it so I would know, but when we put it out onto our website or any other sort of public, am I correct in saying that? Gina, is that where you were going?
So Nancy, I think this is one of the questions for your book. I would assume that it's probably best to de-identify them from now, before you give it to her, because ultimately, we don't really want anyone to have access to the personal information of another person. That's not what this survey was about. If someone decides to come forward and say that it's theirs, that's fine. But I think, and I guess this is up for discussion, but I'm just thinking about how, you know, when you do other
I think it's just safer, cleaner, easier. The owner of if it's already been given to you, Sandra, and it's not de-identified, let's from this point. But if you haven't, I think it's like de-identify it, and he will know that it's your interview. And if we ever need to go back for reference, we go to you, we check it. But because the findings, when we do, I think what we have to put in where the public findings are going to be is what, Sandra, you're doing. We don't need to submit the forms that people have done to
Right.
you. It's your findings. So in your findings, if you could de-identify, that would be.
Okay,
Does
so
everyone agree with that?
yeah,
do we need to take a note about that, or?
I mean, we don't have there isn't an action. I mean, there's an actionable thing here, but I think if we all agree, it's not on the agenda as such. I think we're agreeing in terms of protecting people's identity.
But the institutions are mentioned. So what do we do there? Is it the
So I
same?
think when an institution is mentioned, if it's an institution that would identify the person, then you would de-identify them. And that's where, you know, your conversation with the person comes in. Like you might talk to a person who will say, it's okay if you identify me as someone who works at town hall, but I would like to be identified as someone who works at town hall, not.
But for the case of the police, like if you're talking to the chief, it's pretty hard to show. I guess I would.
I mean, again, you would call, if the chief wanted to be de-identified, you would say a member of the Fairfield Police Force. If that, you know, if he was talking to you specifically about things in the police force and he was okay with you sharing about the police force, but you would say, you know, an officer or. Let's
do this. If you could send a brief email to the people that you've been working with and say, to the best of our ability, you know, we intend to keep this confidential. If you don't mind, then tell us the opposite. We plan to keep it de-identified unless you explicitly tell us otherwise. Should we do that?
I mean, in the research space, it's pretty common ground that when you talk to people, you don't need, if you're keeping it confidential, that's just great. The only thing they need to know about is if you're outing them, if you're calling them by name. So
Yeah.
I don't think we need to
Okay,
say, hey, we're
okay.
keeping this confidential. Is that a problem?
I just meant like if people want to be identified, but at this stage, no need for that. It's adding a layer.
Remember, you know,
Yeah.
we have to go back to the purpose of the deep listening, which was, you know, to start to understand what some of the issues are in these different spaces. My understanding and what Sonia and Alex and I talked about was, you know, more like we do this and we get kind of like, here's what we learned in the education space. Here's what we learned in the police space. Like not necessarily verbatims for what these interviews were, but what were the themes in each of the areas that we were investigating in that we need to then keep in mind when moving forward with the survey.
Yeah.
So I just don't know that we want to get into or that we will get into the minutia of the conversations so much as
I got it.
toward these
And
areas.
and so Karen, can you confirm that after Sandra has collected all this information, given it to Steve, but also giving it to you concurrently?
So let me just, and I apologize because I was on this other call, so I was late to this one, but from a process standpoint, what I thought was going to happen was, you know, Sandra was going to kind of collect everything and then give it to me to then take a look at with, you know, Doug and Ryan's help. Not give it right to Steve. I didn't understand. So I'm missing something?
Nope. Steve, you're not missing something. You're not missing something. The Steve piece was just to pull out some things for the blueprint as he's taking notes to, in a way, he's doing like a version of.
I think that should wait. I think though that
Okay, fine.
Let us do our write-up.
Great.
And then
Great.
we'll give that to him. Here are things to consider for the blueprint. I mean,
Perfect.
That's the whole
Yep.
point is that we synthesize it to do the next step.
And I keep saying Alex and I keep saying Sonia and Alex, but yes, Ryan and Doug.
This was Ryan and Doug
Yeah.
who were going to work with me on, this is
Yep.
what we saw.
Yep.
So you don't want me to get the overarching, you want me to just be the receptacle, which whatever you need for me to do. Cause like right now, Karen, I have a Google file where I've just collected all of the forms and I can share that file with you.
Yeah, that's great. I'm just looking at the notes from the last time and it was, you know, everything to, you know, Sandra to consolidate, Karen, Doug, and Ryan are to synthesize. So I'm literally looking at the to-do list from last week. If the process changed, then.
Consolidate to me is get out the minutia and consolidate main topic points or touch points. But if you don't want me to do that, that's totally fine.
Yeah, I don't think it's that. I just think that we should we should just, you know, make sure that we're not
Yeah.
You know.
I think, you know, Sandra, what you can do is organize it by like, you know, type, you know, so like all of the ones that would go toward that are about the police put in one folder for them to look at, all the ones that are about schools put in another folder, and then they can, so that they can take them by kind of agency. That make sense?
Yeah, there's a lot of cross contamination with that, but you know.
Can I suggest a side conversation, Sandra, before you continue on with you and Karen about what's going to make the most sense? We don't want you to do double, like, and that way you guys can talk since it's between you guys and we'll just save this broader, but thank you. And Sandra, thank you for collecting all of that and the work you've done so far. And Karen, yes, your notes and my notes correspond. That's right in terms of process.
And I'm
separately.
super happy that Sandra's doing this. And, you know, the more organized all the information is, the better.
Absolutely.
So Sandra, maybe you want to jump in with them when they are.
Exactly. And that's what I was, Gina, you and I are absolutely in sync. And if you want to, and again, as long as it's not, if anyone is interested or has thoughts, please, you know, Karen will working with Doug and Ryan and perhaps Sandra on that. So unless there are other questions, any, you have a comment?
Yeah, so let's get back to it. What do I do? How do I send these? Do I declassify them and send them, or do I keep their names?
Declassify them and then send them.
De-identify.
Okay.
De-identify.
You can keep them, you know, just in case for some reason something comes up and, you know, there's somebody that we want to get back to specifically about something. but for the most part, de-identify, just again,
Okay.
because this does get into public record.
Right,
So
keep your
Sandra, they'll be
notes.
coming to you tomorrow then.
Gina, perhaps you would like to make this next introduction moving
I
on,
would.
because this
So-
is a great segue in terms of findings. So with that,
So I've invited Lenasia Brevard. She is actually the president of the Fairfield Equity Coalition. She'll tell you a little bit about the organization, but the reason why I invited her is because they are a group from town that has been, they're about 6 months ahead of us in this process. They started looking at the schools, and they put together a survey, and they're about to present their findings. So Lenasia she graduated from Ward 2 years ago. She was a longtime member of the Fairfield Voices for Equity. She actually was one of the founding members there. And so she has been working on equity since she was 15, 14, all through high school. She took this on as a project. She's presented at conferences. She helped us put on the conference, and she is now turning into quite a youth activist. So Lenasia, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the introduction. As Gina said, I'm the president of the Fairfield Equity Coalition, and I'm going to be speaking about who we are and the survey that we created and what we used it for. So we are a coalition of about 80-ish members. We're still growing, but when this first started in June and July, there was, can everyone hear me okay, by the way, before I keep going? Okay. There was a survey sent out to all the faculty and staff K through 12, as well as the students, current students, and alumni of the Fairfield Public Schools. When this was sent out, we had no intention of creating a report or using these responses. So from those responses, we had created these 10 actual changes. They range from ensuring the curriculum prioritizes and amplifies racial diversity and the voices within it, presentations, trainings, hiring practices, pathways to success to ensure everyone has that, disciplinary practices, and many more. I can share these 10 actual changes that we created from these responses afterwards, so you can go more in depth with it. But we had gotten 400 responses from this very first survey, those 2 surveys that we had sent out. And they were anti-racism and racial equity in Fairfield Public Schools based. So this led to our report, the Promoting Anti-Racism and Racial Equity in Fairfield Public Schools report. As I said, these actual changes were built and they're developed throughout the whole report. It's, sorry, let me just make sure. I want to make sure I say this correctly. So the report is created from actual change, and it's student perspective. And then we have quotes, faculty and staff perspective, what the actual changes, what does it mean? The research that we have done that is based off of the survey, as well as outside resource that we had created, well researched, and then implementation. So between social studies, English, STEM, music and art, world language, and health. And those are divided by elementary school, middle school, and high school. And they are created into long-term and short-term goals based off of the actual change that can be implemented. So with that first survey, as I mentioned, we didn't have any intention of creating a report, so none of that data was feasible to use. So quotes and graphics, I thought the best decision to make, because of having no consent given to use it on social media, on our report, and publishing these quotes, I thought it was the best decision to create a new survey that got the correct approval by the Board of Ed to send it to the teachers and faculties and staff within the Fairfield Public School systems K through 12. And then the student survey that we had sent out through just promoting on social media, so current students and alumni had taken it. And from there, I had went over all of the quotes that we had gotten from all the responses that we've gotten from those 2 second surveys. And how we chose to implement those into our current report is what best amplified the voices that we had already said previously, that was already written down, and how can these voices show that what we're saying is true to the community around us, because with writing something like this, it's very community based. So we want to make sure that what we're writing very much reflects the community around us. It's very tricky because as Fairfield's predominantly white, these voices that we're talking about aren't very much within the community, but that doesn't mean that they're not as important, and they are as important to be included. So we want to make sure that that was coming across by acknowledging our society around us and the community that we're raised in, but making sure that these motions that I've listed, the practicings, the trainings and hiring practices, all of that are properly projected and made throughout our curriculum in Fairfield Public School systems. So that's essentially what I have. If you have any questions, please let me know. And thank you for having me.
So the reason why I wanted to have Lanisha join us is essentially they created a blueprint in the same way we're trying to. I mean, they pretty much on a micro level at one part of town, they've already done exactly the work that we are planning to do, which is they talked to people, they figured out what their concerns were, and they synthesized them into an action plan. So, you know, for all of us working on the educational piece, we have something to, you know, to build on, essentially. Lanisha, would you go over your 10 action items?
Yes, I can do that for you.
Can you also talk a little bit, I know you're talking about how you collected the data and what was your time frame? I'm sorry if I missed that. It was start to finish.
So we had sent out those 2 original surveys, which we created these 10 actual changes off of in June and July. I'm pretty sure, I believe it was in July, late June. I'm not 100% on the dates, but I can definitely get that to you. This second survey, I believe, was sent out in, I'm pretty sure we sent it out in August, I want to say. August, September. Again, I can get those dates finalized for you and I can send them to you after this. But that was the time frame that we've had. And sorry.
No,
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we had left it open for about a week before we started like going over all the data. That's it.
And ultimately, in terms of how you got to the survey questions, was it pretty clear? Did you work with someone who was like a professional data person, or you kind of just all got together and built consensus and weren't too caught up in the order?
So,
yeah. Can you talk a little bit about?
Yeah. So for the first survey, our coalition ranges from age 15 to 27. So there's teachers involved, people that have worked with data and all of that. So there's a lot of knowledge within the coalition already, but we had spoken to, you know, faculty, politicians, community leaders, teachers and staff outside of Fairfield as well as inside of Fairfield, and parents and other students to develop not only the survey, but the report itself and how to go about it. So yes, there wasn't like a data analysis person that we worked with. It was very much the people within the coalition, and then getting review from like a teacher or someone that we knew that was in a position of an educator.
It's amazing because you've really helped, you know, with your guidance and help, like as Gina just said, you've really successfully seen this. So I didn't mean to cut off, and you were going to talk about the 10 action items. I just was curious about some more of the backstory. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you for asking. So actionable change number 1 is to ensure curricula for all grade levels prioritizes cultural and racial diversity by amplifying representative perspectives and experiences of historical marginalized groups. The second one is implement mandatory anti-racist, implicit biases, and restorative justice trainings led by independent professionals for all faculty and staff on a frequent ongoing basis. The third one is implement mandatory presentations, courses and trainings across all grade levels where students will learn about the social construction of racial and cultural identity and its influence on themselves and others. Recruit, hire, and retain racial diversity, cultural competent school, faculty, and staff. I just did 3 and 4. The fifth one is redesign the pathways to success to meet the ends of all students and ensure that race, socioeconomic status, and etc. will not predict any student's educational outcome. The sixth one is re-image disciplinary systems by shifting towards restorative practices and invest in resources that will support and empower students. The seventh one is create an implicit district-wide anti-racism policy and establish a community-based restorative justice committee to prevent and repair harm in cases of discrimination and harassment, FPS. The eighth one is develop opportunities for cross-cultural and cross-racial collaboration through extracurricular activities within and outside the Fairfield community. The ninth one is create a permanent, diverse community of trained students, parents, faculty, and relevant professionals to inform Fairfield Public Schools' future curricular and policy decisions relating to race and equity. And the last one is establish a detailed, measurable plan for implementation of the actual changes of this report and maintain a direct, transparent channel of communication regarding progress. And if,
Whoa.
yeah, if you
Well
have any
done.
questions, just let me know.
Yeah,
So-
Lanisha, this is Doug. If either you can email that, probably actually post it if you could in the chat section. I can paste that if you've got a
If-
document, or send it to Gina.
I can post our website, and at the top banner it says our Fairfield Equity Coalition, and then it says home, about us, projects, and actionable changes, and it would be under actionable changes.
So
Okay.
in your report,
We have
are
so
you
many.
recommending how to reach those goals?
Yeah, so as I explained, sorry, I'm just putting in our thing. Hold on one second. Yeah, as I
This
explained
is quite
before-
amazing.
Mhm.
Thank you. As I explained before, the way that the report is set up is by actual change. So for example, number 4, recruit and hiring practices. So the way that it's set up is student perspective. So that talks about, like, we will have the direct quotes from that survey there. So just having student voice, faculty and staff perspective. So teachers and faculty and staff, their quotes will go there. What the actual change means, and then the implementation through social studies, English, STEM, music and art, world language, and health. Organized by elementary, middle, and high school, and then the long-term and short-term goals within each of those subjects and actionable change, if that makes sense.
Can I ask a question? This is so great, by the way. I'm so impressed with all of this, because it's fantastic.
Thank
How
you.
empowered are you feeling at this point that you'll be able to make these changes? Like, I'm wondering, has the Board of Ed bought into everything? Are these things that are in your control, these action items, or is there red tape that's in your way, or process that's in your way? Or do you feel
Yes.
great about it? Maybe you feel great about it.
So I feel very good with this. It was the course of these 6 months that we've done all this research and work. And we have talked to the board. I'm very much in contact with Mike Cummings and the Board of Ed members there. And we were supposed to present tomorrow, but they had a budgeting meeting come up, so it's pushed to January. So the game plan is to present that beginning of the beginning of January, so the week of the 4th, hopefully. But yes, we're very much on board with that. But we are publishing our report, the survey results, the survey itself, and everything, all of our research and stuff, on the 28th of this month. So it will be public, and we're hoping to, meet with people like we are right now to speak about it, as well as the Board of Ed meeting in January.
I wonder if there's an opportunity after you've presented, seeing what they adopt, and then figuring out, because our presentation is a year later, it gives us an opportunity to partner with you guys if that's something that's interesting to you. Because I mean, I'm just speaking for myself out loud, obviously not having, this is the first time as a group we're hearing this, but you've obviously collected important information and data and have an important point of view. And the fact that you have the direct line of communication to the superintendent is obviously just fantastic. And I wonder if it's the kind of thing where we can adopt some of where, you know, what hasn't been adopted, if we could incorporate into our blueprint some of what hasn't been adopted and pick it up. So like, it gives you a second opportunity. So you'll present in January, and then we're kind of working with you to incorporate. Gina, you nodded, so maybe you can be more articulate than what I'm, because
I mean, I think this, the reason why I invited Lanesia to come in is because I think this is an example of where I see our blueprint coming from. You know, I feel that it's these partnerships with, you know, we now no longer have to take 6 months to do what she just did. We can start here and go forward. And so I think hopefully the result of our deep listening is that we're going to uncover more projects like this that are already, you know, in the process. Like, you know, I think Sandra, what you were saying about what the police department's already done, you know, how do we then take that and move it forward? And I agree with you, what you're saying, Nancy. You know, they're going to present it this January. We're presenting our blueprint next January. My hope is that we continue this partnership throughout, you know, this year, where everyone we already have people who signed up because they wanted to be involved on the education front. My hope is that we partner and we continue their work, and we also, you know, amplify this work that they've done. And, you know, we want to make sure that these things become institutional, so that it's not about Lanesia did a great job and Mike Cummings was all on board. We want to institutionalize it so that if Mike Cummings moves on to bigger and better pastures and Lanesia goes on to rule the world like she's on the way to, we still have this plan in place that for the town. So that's kind of my vision of how I see this working, and how I see this working across all of our target areas.
So Lanesia, the group will tell you I love homework. I love to assign people things. It would be great if you, now having come into our groups, into the group here, if you could go back and ask if that's something that would be interesting to your team. Would they be willing to do what Gina just suggested?
Yes, I totally am on board with this, and I think that everyone else will be. So I'm just gonna say now that yes, we'll be working with you guys, and I think this is a perfect plan, and this is something that we hope to come from the report, that it could be used as a sister document or a template for other projects of, you know, not just race but gender and sexuality and things of that sort, that it could be, you know, taken out and used other things for that. And that's something that we hope to do with the board, is to create this plan of, no matter who the people who created this, wherever they go in life, like as Gina said, you know, that these things are still implemented and they have the tools. And this is kind of what we took from the data, is this is what the public and the community around us wants, and this is how they can get it done, but still keeping it to where we don't know everything, you know. And I think that's important, is to not come off as like, I know exactly how to get this done, especially, you know, to the board. We don't want to, like, I'm going on a tangent. This has nothing to do with what you said, but
you're not. We love a tangent. And as Kathy just said in the chat, like, I think it'd be great if you'd be willing to share, as we're building, Karen Lynch and Ryan and Doug are going to be, and Sandra are going to be synthesizing the information, as you just heard. It would be great if part of their culling through information, if they could look at the work that you did. Is the original template for the survey there? Or maybe Karen, we can put you in touch separately.
Yeah, I was wondering that too. I haven't seen the survey instrument itself, right? But we have to also keep in mind that for this current phase, you know, this is a vision, like what she's presented and what's on their website is a great vision for what comes after some of the survey that we're doing, right? Remember, the purpose of the deep listening isn't to get to where she is. So
Right.
she's way ahead of us. Their group's way ahead of us.
Exactly.
This is a great benchmark though for what we need to be rallying for all the other groups to be doing also with our assistants. They've
And-
been empowered in the education space,
Exactly.
fantastic, but if the other organizations aren't this far along in the process, then I feel like our aim will be to push them along in this direction.
What this does, I think, is it's the vertical. I'm talking about all the different topics, education, police, those are verticals, different verticals. So in the education vertical, it's almost like, they're 3 steps ahead.
Yeah.
And while our survey and having talked to Lanesia, go ahead, because.
I was just gonna say, like, in response to what you just said, I think that everything much so coincides, like as you guys are developing this, I think something learning, I'm sorry, I don't know what you called what you're doing.
We're just interviewing people right now.
Yes. So I think with like what we had done and such, like we can be used as a resource if need be, if that resource is needed to develop more surveys and to what to do with that information, because like you said, like we are ahead of where you guys are right now. But I think everything with education and police and all of that, it very much is on the same playing field with the concepts, and the common trends are very much common throughout all different agencies and such. So I think that having that there as a resource is very much needed. And that's something that we did too. Like we met with all different branches of not just education, but also the police and such. And I think it's important to have it very much on the same playing field, even though it's different genres of things that want to fix, but it's the same trends, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think, when you talk about, your summer survey and how you kind of first got started, that's kind of, we're still back there. We're still at like, just a bunch of people have an idea and they're going out asking people, what do you think? And I think that's where you got a lot of your beginning information, and then you were able to move it to the next phase. So I think, we're looking, I'm thinking of looking at it in 2 ways. One, we're not, the information that you have is going to be useful for us on our process, but really what I think is really useful is your process is useful to us. That this is a process that has been a successful way of looking at equity in this town. So I think we can look at that process a little bit. And I think that's where those templates will come in handy as we design the other verticals going forward.
I agree.
Anyone else have a question or a comment for Lanesia? Well, seeing no more.
Thank you for the brilliant work.
Yeah, I just echo that. Amazing work and structure and follow through, and very impressive.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so Lanesia, you are more than welcome to stay and listen, but please don't also feel, don't feel obligated. No one will be upset.
I also just want to reiterate, because I had the privilege of talking to Mike Cummings and talking to John Whaley, and the feeling was that there was such great momentum with this in the school system, and then it just COVID really just and reopening in the schools and the hybrid and all of that really, it kind of bumped some of the initiatives to the back burner. And so I want to make sure that we, in our blueprint, it is kind of the challenge. In what ways do we keep this a priority no matter what? That's why I was asking about your action items. I don't want these action items to be kind of placated. I want them to be very, very much implemented. And so we need to make sure that they're super actionable, and that all of your work is kind of respected and honored, and not by any malintent, but because priorities and budgets and blah, 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 and all that other stuff. So there's a whole political process, right, that could bog you down if we're not careful. So I just want to make sure we empower you further.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, you can go. Sorry.
Go ahead, Lanesia, I'll jump in after.
I was just going to say thank you. And going off of COVID and such, we have a whole section in our report that talks about it, because with the current state that we're in, it's very important to acknowledge that and to keep in mind that, like you just said, like despite how urgent this is, there's also a pandemic around us, and that's hurting the development of all of this and the pushback of it. But just to keep pushing forward that this is, as you know, it's still important, and it's still very important to the climate that we're in right now, but also acknowledging the other factors as well.
And what I was going to say is, you know, it's interesting to me because it's only more compelling what you're presenting, which is student driven. I mean, 27 being the older end of the spectrum. When I talk to the Board of Ed members, why students aren't, you are the stakeholders, teachers and students, and why you don't have a seat at that table as a representative. And it highlights that maybe something we should all think about collectively is not just an equity voice representative as policies are being made, but you know, students more broadly need to have a voice, and minority students, or you know, the diverse voices, because it seems like all these decisions are being made and the stakeholders aren't even being asked the questions about how something is impactful or effective, or and you know, it's something we talk about for the adults in the room, but for the students, like, oh well, students don't really, and it's so quick to, people are so quick to dismiss the student voice, and yet you are proof positive, and the work that your group is doing is proof positive that we really need to be taking your voices seriously. So just something I think that we need to think about as we put together whatever the actions become after your group has a chance to present, and then it's incorporated into our own blueprint. So,
and I think too, the thing about student voices, and this is something that will come up often, you know, in this discussion about equity in our town, and we have these small groups of people, and why are we focusing all this energy on these small groups of people? But I can say that, like, you know, Lanesia, when she was a sophomore, because of Voices for Equity, actually went to and presented at the Redesigning Schools conference in San Diego about her experience as a student. And, you know, I think this kind of work opens up avenues for people that normally would not have access to them otherwise. And so that's, you know, in looking at sort of our big picture of why this is important, this is another one of those reasons, right? You know, this is an equity group in town turned into people who are now leaders, and that's important too, and we want to make sure that we're highlighting that. And so I'm just so proud to have you here, Lanesia, because you know, I knew you when you're just a little baby activist, and now you're a fully grown activist.
little baby activist. All right, well, thank you. And Lanesia, if you do decide to stay logged in, please feel free to, this is a free form group here, small but mighty. The next item with Ryan and Alex and Steve, who unfortunately could not be here tonight, not feeling well. We have the website map, which was that, forgive me for not having this in front of me, was the map shared as an attachment? Did you all have a chance to, Ryan, I think you're on mute.
It was at the
Bottom
attached
as
to the agenda.
On the
Yeah.
agenda.
So if you just continue to roll down your agenda.
all right, so I can, does anyone have it handy, and can they share the website map, or should we just pull it up on our own? Let's see, I can hold please, and then I'll pull it up. So it was part of the bottom of the agenda. Yes, here we go. All right, so I'm gonna share this momentarily. If anyone has anything they want to add, keep the conversation moving.
I'll just say that we got Alex, Nancy, and Steve, and I just had a call, and we just sat down, looked at the website, talked over some possible changes for it, and to make it clear and to create some other places for things to live. And just to reorganize it a little bit. So the document that you have there is just an outline of that, with the highlights are just kind of our notes to like things that have to be added, changed, deleted, or whatever. After, I guess there was a little bit of question of whether we wanted to kind of share this out if anybody had additional comments. Not that, the website is not anything that's couldn't be changed going forward if it's not working or whatever. But, this was a place to start. We felt it would help. We talked about also at some point creating a logo for the task force, and using that on the home page. And then maybe there'll be some other instances where that could be useful going forward. And that's about it. Some of it was really just housekeeping and making sure that we have a place to locate resources for the community. Just to clarify again about where our documents that are shared during the meeting will be included with the minutes of that meeting. Anything that was presented by a group, I can think of like the synthesis being presented, that would be attached and referred to in the minutes, and therefore, would be living on the website as kind of a working document. Ultimately, things that are more formalized could certainly have their own location, such as a finished plan, or if you wanted to have a place where the survey questions were located and a link to the survey or something like that. But
do you see the screen? You all can see the map. I mean, okay. What I think may be better is if we pull up, if Ryan, you could kind of talk through the map, and I will pull up can you see the screen share now? Is it still on the map?
It's on the map.
All right, so what I'm gonna do is stop the screen share of the map. And I'm going to share the town website. All right, do you see that? Do you see the town website?
Yep, yep.
All right, so.
Yeah, okay, so the home page, do you want me to just talk?
Yeah, talk it through. I think that's the best thing.
So the home page, some of this is kind of standard. I did look at other, like say, oh, could we move this around? Could we do that? And it's like, there's certain kind of standard landing places on the town website.
The logo, sorry, it drives me crazy.
Oh yeah, so I'm going to get to that, but
I know, I just meant even knowing that.
Yeah.
The racial equity groups are working to change the native.
Yeah, no
sorry.
No kidding. So we would change, get our own logo, change here. The contact information would obviously be the same. The function is the same. I think the next item has to do with a word change in the mission statement. So I'm not going to go into that right now. The second part of the meetings, we're going to add some links to that in addition to the town meeting calendar, where meeting dates can kind of be hard to find if you don't know exactly what you're looking for. We're going to add also a link back to our information page, which would just give a list of the dates of when the meetings are for the entire year. So they'll be kind of in two places.
And to be clear, these are the racial equity meetings, not
the task
not like
force.
other the task force meetings. These aren't general meetings of other advocacy groups.
Exactly.
That's a different calendar.
That's a different thing. Yeah.
Which we'll have
on page 1. So about racial, the about page. Right now, we're going to keep again, some of these pages are kind of standard fare. So up at the top, we're going to keep the information about the term length. We're going to add, Nancy suggested adding after the 11, some information that about the number that's 2 chairs plus 9 members. the board balance is just that's just some general information. When you go to the committee charged, we're going to remove that and move it over into our section on, let's see.
Under the description, right now it says description, powers and duties, but
Yeah,
we're actually going to list it out. So you don't have to
we're
go to
gonna
the
list it
link.
out. Exactly. Yeah, add a task force members, add the task force charge. Exactly. So instead of down here, you'll see information about the members and about the charge itself. Post each section of the charge and breaking those out. So in the longer charge, there's some different sections. So figuring out a way to do that and have it make, it may end up needing to be a link because I don't see a page going on, like a landing page going on for too long. But can you go back to about, and just move that up? Yeah. So that area of description and powers of duty will kind of be covered.
It won't have the members listed here because there is one a link to the actual members. Ryan, you'll see a tab where it says member information, so the names and the contacts of the members won't be here. It would be in a different page.
It'll be located on a different page, but if you wanted, I understood from our talk that if you wanted to have a listing there that said task force members, it would just link to that page.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Listen, the more user friendly, the overarching idea is to be as.
Yeah, that's why when I was looking at it, I was just like, okay, because I know I had been in it several times. It's like, this is here, this is there. So we just tried to make more sense of it.
Yeah.
On page 2, which is, I guess now agendas.
Yeah.
We want that to be, I guess that would be documents, meeting records. So that would be titled meeting information. And that would be where you can click on that now, although it's not going to make sense in terms of what we're doing. But that would be where we have our agendas, our minutes.
It's the admin.
All the admin, the meeting recordings, the meeting dates, the member listings. Where that list of the members, which we're going to also add emails onto the member list, the designated emails.
I don't mind keeping member listing actually its own thing because I think going into admin, is the minutes, the agendas, the recordings, where member listing, it's just the way it's set up and
sure.
And again, if anyone else has a strong feeling otherwise, but I just think it's like easy, you click on it and the minutes will move under the admin. And then it was some of that other stuff that on the map. Can you see the map or are we still on the website?
No, I've got the map in front of me. I don't.
No, the group.
No, we can only see the website.
All right, let me share the, you can.
I think since everybody has it.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't need to do that.
Okay. So.
Just go back to the website.
Yeah, I'm going to do
that. Although most of these things are changes anyway, so it's not going to make.
It doesn't, right, exactly.
Yeah, you don't even have to.
Yeah.
So the next page would be, so I put a note down here that we'll keep that member listing separate. The next page would be a get involved. And it would say something, here's a list of other community groups working for racial equity and justice. Contact them to get involved or something like that. And then that would be where any group that we find out who's working on this can just be listed with a link to their websites.
And I owe you some of that information because some of it I'll just build out so that we even have it as the beginnings. So that this will start to make more sense. So as people are thinking, and Kathy, thank you for your list. And we'll put that up within the next week. I had to get through last week, but we'll start to, and we wanted to approve the website map. So once we do that tonight, you'll start to see some of these changes.
And then the page 4 would be resources to learn more. Something like that, here's some resources to help you learn more about racial equity and justice. And that's could have separate sections, books, films, podcasts, research, something about municipal planning for equity and justice, and then curated list. Someone, I forget, maybe it was
Me.
Okay, you had, yeah, some curated list. So that's a place if some other organization has put together a list, just an easy way to throw those in there. So if somebody was looking, they could go to this spot and find lots of just very rich. The idea would to make that very rich. And the other were just some logistical notes about when to post, when to the timing of posting the minutes. And that's it.
Anyone have any additions, thoughts, questions? I mean, it's very fluid. And thank you, Ryan, for all your work on this. Anyone have questions? And again, it's a fluid situation, the website, and something I imagine we'll be building all throughout our process. So in the interest of time, if there aren't questions now, let's, do I hear a motion to approve the website map so that we can act on it and then change the website?
I'm happy to make that motion. So, motion.
So
Yeah.
Karen Lynch Doug makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Sandra Tallman makes the second. Is there any discussion, further discussion? All in favor of adopting this and approving the website so that Alex, Ryan, we can move forward in this way? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Any abstentions? The motion carries. That's beautiful. Thank you. One thing that may impact it, and I want to move right along, something that's come up again and again is this idea of inequality versus inequity. And the words have been used interchangeably at times. And I think it's important, and maybe no one else thinks it's important. So it's something Steve had mentioned. Inequity seems to me, and I can talk about why, the right word, but sometimes people use the word inequality. So I just wanted to put that up for discussion. And
So Nancy, in 4 of the calls which I had over this past week, they all used the word inequity. It was interesting that they all chose to use that word.
right, and this is the racial equity task force. Sometimes people use the word inequality.
Yeah.
And so and Steve had brought it up as something that he wanted to bring to the group as a motion. He's not here, so I don't want to speak on his behalf, but this emanates from a conversation we had had.
You give us, maybe I'm not understanding. So what is the question that?
I guess the question is sometimes in the
Not understanding it's in the mission. We're talking about a word change in the mission.
What?
And I do have the mission state in front of me. Steve had brought it.
Pull up the website again, Nancy.
Okay, so Steve had brought up this idea that racial equity, inequalities, and injustices. It's in the first part of the.
Oh, I think that was a typo.
Okay.
I think this went back and forth a few times, and that might have been a change that got made that we didn't see initially, because initially it did say inequity.
So, it's this idea, and Gina actually, and sort of early on in helping me in my path forward, had sort of explained it in a clear way, and then used an example about this idea of looking over a 6-foot fence. And if you give everybody a 2-foot apple box, but you have one person who's 4 feet and one person who's 5 feet, it's equal, but it's not equitable. And so I think that was the aha moment of, I think we have to be careful. So it may be that it was just a typo and I'm not even remembering that, and maybe it's not even a real discussion here, but as I said, Steve had brought that up. So anyone else want to comment? Do we all agree that inequity is what it is? anyone feel strongly, not strongly?
I think it's really important for it to be inequity, and I think it's really important for us to flesh out for people what that means.
Yeah,
I'm
I was
not
just-
sure everybody appreciates what that means.
Yeah, and the build on it is, I've heard a lot of people in this space not understand racial bias versus discrimination versus prejudice. Maybe we have a definitions, kind of
Section.
a section on our website that's a little educational for people so that
Yeah.
they can learn some of the language that we use and start to understand it.
It's a great suggestion as like its own pull down box for the website, which is for the purposes of this group and the space we're working on. We sort of adopt this language and it means this. These are terms, and it's bias and it's, and maybe there's a group of people that would like to, hey, homework assignment, who would like to come back to the group with some terms? Kathy, is that something that you feel? I saw
Sure.
you kind of nodding.
Yes.
I like the idea of a page that we call the language of equity. And it just
Ooh.
kind of has our
Love it.
definitions as we can kind of agree to them. And maybe it would be even something to bring back to the group that we can all kind of vote on, say we're going to use it, and then we'll just use
Yeah.
it forward. And again, I think it is a symbolic gesture for us to have a vote on the language of equity, but it is also meaningful because if we've gone through the effort of doing a vote on the language of equity and we're going to be proposing changes to other documentation in town, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could point back to our
Yeah.
language of equity document
I love it.
that we can
Yes.
share with other agencies?
So Kathy, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is taking input from anyone that sends it to you, or if you reach out to the group. But I mean, I've heard a few terms, but it shouldn't be limited to this. And if you could give it to us a few days in advance of our next meeting, which I don't have it in front of me. Yes, I do. What we can do is put it as part of the agenda. It is, bear with me. I'm normally very organized and have this at the tip of my fingers. It has not been. Does anyone have the January dates in front of them? I have
I'm
the
just looking for it.
January
I-
5th.
January 5th, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So if you could, by the 2nd, or well, the 5th is a Tuesday. If you could by the, I mean, I know it's not that fun, but like by the 30th or the 3rd, by the 3rd is fine.
Okay. Yeah. and
Bias,
Mhm.
inequality, inequity, discrimination, some of the other, I'm just spitballing some of the words. Anyone else have? White privilege. I mean, I think that.
I think, the thing is, again, this is not a reinventing the wheel kind of situation. I think
Exactly.
there are plenty of resources like this, so
Yeah.
Kathy can.
Yeah,
we don't
can I
need to
just draw
micromanage that
from,
with her?
yeah, I'll draw from the experts that I read and then I'll just give it
Perfect.
back. Okay.
I mean, I think
Okay.
microaggressions, if we're putting things on the list, to me, that's a important one in a town where people might not think they
Okay.
might not think they do anything.
Yeah,
that-
Well-
intersectionality is another one.
Okay, well, I'll make the
Yeah.
list and then you can decide what you want to put on there and what you don't want
You
to.
mean the town where someone told me that they were trying to Jew me down? Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, that town. Yep.
Okay.
I think that's great. So that will be another thing to add. We don't need to vote on it. We've already voted on the website, but I think this is a great addition. So I guess we can hear and consider an act on language since it's on the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt inequity versus inequality and add that language of inequity or language of equity, language of inequity to our
So the question is,
website?
we're voting to change that word in the mission statement, correct?
Correct. Just as a formality so that we can go and say
Ryan?
there's been a formal, yeah, Ryan.
Does that have to go back to the town because that document was approved? You're doing a word change, you're gonna have to reapprove.
Yeah, no, that's why I was saying that I'm gonna do this as a formal motion to bring it to the Board
Okay.
of Selectmen because of it.
Yeah,
Because it's gonna have to be, it was adopted, so that's why it's in here.
But Gina's suggesting it was a result of a typo. So maybe it could be presented as to correct the typo.
Yeah,
Right?
it will be. I'm not going to give them
Yeah, okay.
it in language that,
If it was me, I would not tell them that you have a typo in it. I would say, these are two words that are being used interchangeably. And as we got into our work, the consensus was that it was more specific to say this rather than saying somebody put a typo in your document.
and the reason I like,
Yeah,
oh, sorry, Ryan.
no, that's it.
One thing I might ask is maybe it's an opportunity for two of the task force members to come and present the item to the Board of Selectmen, why it's important. And we keep talking about how we get in forward and if we're on the agenda for the Board of Selectmen and a presentation of those two words, it's just one chance. I'm happy to not make such a thing of it, but I do think it's an opportunity to get two of you in front of the Board of Selectmen to talk about those two words and reference the language of inequity. And it's just, again, one chance to come before the body. Is anyone interested in that? All right, well, you have a day to think about it. If we want to put it on this week's agenda, I can hold out for a little bit. I don't think there is a rush. We do have a board meeting on Monday. I can put a pin in it to ask the question again at the next meeting in the new year, when
Well,
it's
I
more
think
hearts on
I can
minds.
do, Nancy, I'll do it.
It may not make it onto this. I mean, the first select woman sets the agenda. It may not even make it for Monday.
Yeah.
But Gina, what were you about to say?
Should we go, like, do we need to do a vote to adopt this as a formal thing that
No, because what we're doing is here and considering and acting on language, and that could encompass it.
okay,
Where that just becomes relevant is what we decide to do. I don't think we need to have a formal, we could put it on the New Year agenda. The truth is it may get lost the week before the holidays. So maybe this is
Right.
something that should wait until the new year anyway. So
no, I just meant within the structure of this meeting. Do we need to kind of formalize that we are agreeing as a group that we want to make the change to our mission statement?
yeah, that's what
Yeah.
So
Is
does anyone
that-
have a,
Oh, so that motion's
So I'm-
still sitting out there, correct?
the motion is still out there. Do I have a motion to change does someone want to make a formal motion?
Yeah, so I will make a motion to amend the word inequality in our mission statement to equity,
Inequity.
to inequity, sorry.
Inequality to inequity. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Sandra, second.
Sorry.
Any discussion?
Just clarifying, the word that we're replacing is inequalities, and we're replacing it the word inequities, like same
Correct.
tense.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank
Exactly.
you.
And in all instances where it appears in terms of inequality should be inequity.
Yeah.
So whatever okay, so that is the motion. We have a second, and no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any abstentions? Any negative? No. The motion carries.
And real quick, Kathy, do you have a copy? Is Kathy allowed to, a copy of the mission statement? Because there's probably some language in there that you can,
Yeah, it's on the website.
yeah, but like I just saw kind of implicit and explicit and all that stuff, and that might be helpful too.
Yeah, I have it. Thank you. I'll look back at it.
This next one is where I still get stuck, and I feel like maybe someone has a good idea. To hear, consider, and act on a mechanism for reporting on other advocacy groups. This goes back to the calendar thing. How we're reporting in goes back to like Ryan having taken notes on certain things, and how do we? Steve is finding all this great information and sending it to us. Like, does it live on the website? I just don't feel like we have a there
Well,
yet.
we do have the template, I think, and he sent it, that Alex sent around.
Yep.
The template that shows like, here's what you should be recording.
Right,
and
but it's less about, I guess it's less for me about the recording of it than it is about knowing what's going on, who's going where. Like, Easton is having a task force. They've invited me to speak, but it doesn't need to be me. It should be somebody from the group. But like, how do we, yeah, Ryan.
I think, I mean, I love the idea of having a different group every single meeting actually say who they are and what they're doing. I think that's a way to educate the task force about what's going on without taking up necessarily too much time. And it also brings them into the, into the task force work. And so just having a brief, I know I did this at the Cultural Alliance where I had a lot of Alliance members of where we would bring members in and have them speak about what they were doing. And, or I guess it was the Fairfield Arts Council more, I did that because it was a more kind of manageable number, but yeah. And then
It's in the minutes. You actually are a genius.
What's that?
I said you're actually a genius because in some ways, then the minutes are there. That's the mechanism.
Exactly. And then we add them as we go along in that resource section. We've already got a section on the website that says, here is, here's their information. And then also, up front, you often ask people on the task force, what's been going on? What have you heard? Are there issues? That's the perfect place for people to say, I attended this event and this is what I learned about. And then that group, if we've never heard of it, could go on the list to be invited in the future, or at minimum that their information could be added to the website. So there are two action entrance points, and a third being like, oh my gosh, we've got to get in touch with these people and really find out what their work is and bring that in more specifically.
And to further it, sorry, because I got excited because
I was just going to say, and then the template that any provided is kind of just a way, if you're going to, like a reminder, if you're going to a meeting, these are the kinds of things together that you can share later with the task force.
So I wonder if like even we have a thing where everybody's responsible for, and we could do it as simply as like Doug is doing the minutes today, maybe his job for the next meeting, and maybe it's not, well, it could be every meeting. His job is to invite a stakeholder group in. Or maybe it's not, maybe the onus is on me and Gina, or maybe just someone reaches out and says, like maybe next time we invite Fairfield Ubuntu, I'm making it up. Next time after that, we invite Fairfield Cares, like some of the groups, or is it repeating the work? I don't know. Maybe it's inviting CCM, but I love the idea because what we learned from Lenasia today is so super helpful. It's going to help us not reinvent the wheel. Maybe we're inviting in the Westport Task Force. Instead of reaching out to Easton, they're pushing into our group, or it's going both ways.
I think if you could generate a list, just start a document with a list of every group that we know, and maybe ask the entire task force to send in every group that they're aware of. Just have a brain dump, first of all, and then maybe a a Google search for the area, and then just come up with a list. And then maybe you and Gina, I think, would have a pretty good idea of who are the, where to start with that. And sometimes it could just be this can't do it this month, we'll go to the next one.
Jason, do you want to own that list of the groups? Not so much.
Not so much.
Okay. Gina, maybe you and I can just kind of.
Yeah, I think what would be good is, especially if you have in your deep listening, talk to someone who's representative of a group, just forward their information on to me, and I can contact them and set up a time for them to come and speak at the meeting. So really
great.
Want to add one deal. I just don't want to say no, but there was a lot. I received, and I put in the notes about, I spoke with Kristen McCarthy-Vahey this week from her role in mostly Fairfield Cares, but many capacities. And she had mentioned she'd like to be a part of the meetings. I just think if Gina and Nancy, if you guys were to coordinate those conversations and engage, maybe invite them to the meetings, it may be
100%.
I just think that'd go a little
You're
bit.
right. You're right. You're right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you just send an email to me and Nancy with the
Yeah. And even
tagline,
names,
potential
like,
speaker.
yeah, just a brain dump, like just
Yeah.
say, oh, I know of this group, and this group, just shoot an email and then get it in one place. And I'm happy, I mean, I'd be happy to put it in a document, like if you need, if it's helpful to you to get it in one place or whatever, or organize it. I mean, I can do that too. So,
Sure, that would be great.
okay.
Because my email box
Yeah.
looks like the inside of my brain right now, and it's not pretty.
It's so funny because something actually that just became so clear was like really hard for me to get my head around, but you guys all just came up with the perfect way to engage these groups.
Well,
So
I
if you
think the
have,
other
if
part
you've spoken
though,
to someone that, oh, sorry, Karen.
no, that's, I think
Oh,
there's
is
there's two things. I think there's people coming to us and then there's us going out. And I think
Yep,
the us
true.
going out is more complicated because I feel that as a task force, we should be responding when we're invited to attend somebody else's thing. But I think we need to make sure that our resources aren't, not, like, I know we talked and Innie was doing some of that and she has that template. But, for instance, when I was trying to have a phone conversation with the Board of Ed and they're like, hey, the Fairfield Equity Coalition is presenting to us. Do you want to join us on that? And my first thought is, well, I don't know if I can. Should somebody? Like, probably. And what is our process for what is our process for that? If another group wants to invite us and the person who receives the invitation may or may not be the right person to go or able to go, but does that mean we just say no thank you? Or do we put it out in an email to everybody and say, does somebody want to go? Like, that's where I have uncertainty. Or do we adopt, I think what I put in an email to you was maybe we all have ambassadors. Like if it's in the education space, I'll take it. If it's in the youth space, Gina takes it. If it's in the housing space, Alex takes it, whatever. Like maybe we adopt it, kind of, we become ambassadors for the topic. I don't know.
And maybe it's as simple, because you're right, Karen, it's the push in, but again, the push out. And maybe it's as simple as like, I got this invitation to speak with the Easton Task Force. It's not until February. If someone's inclined to do it, I just bring it up in this way and someone sort of raises their hand for it. And maybe that's the thing. We just take the invitations as they come.
Or we get in the cadence of, if we have enough notice, at bringing them up at the meeting.
Yeah.
Because the challenge with an email is if we throw out an email and say, hey, this event is coming up next week, would anybody like it? And then there's no response. You never really know if there's no response because everybody hasn't read the email yet, or if there's no response because nobody wants to do it. But there's a lot of ambiguity if we just put it out there in an email. So
I think it's waits for the meetings.
Yeah.
And we actually connect. And that if it's more immediate, I think we take it case by case. And,
Right, because I think I like the idea about waiting for the meetings, but I also think it's interesting I think when you have people who are coming to us, the natural thing that's going to happen is, they know we're here. So they may, and they'll know to come to us if they have something they want us to come to. But I do like your idea about ambassadors, Karen, because then it becomes not throwing it out to the organization as a whole, but all right, it's youth space. Gina, can you come? No. Hey, I can't do this. Anybody else want to do this? No, I'll send them a note saying that we can't join, but whatever. So I do like that idea, Karen.
Anyone else have input on that?
I think the other reason it's really important to invite speakers is because we're trying to do the work at the same time as we're surveying, right? As you're surveying. So amplifying voices of all these other groups and having them be recorded as part of our meetings would be a really great way to anybody who does go listen to these recordings or does attend the meetings would then learn more than they might learn otherwise. So that seems like a really good reason.
And then cross-referenced again to Ryan's point, it's like the list, that group's there under resources, and hopefully they're doing the same for us with the link. And maybe that becomes part of an invitation. If someone invites us, we say, oh, we would love you to, make sure you add the link to the work we're doing or what have you. Anyone have anything to add on that, on the advocacy groups? If something comes to mind, again, just please email Gina and me, and we'll put it, Ryan, in that Google Doc. Anyone have any other new business?
I have a
So-
question.
Yes.
I don't want to make this last longer, but I just have a quick overall question. One of the things a lot of people talk about when we talked about why we wanted to do this work or join these groups was partly because we feel like Fairfield is very homogeneous. So in all of this surveilling and stuff, how do you capture people, or how do you capture the opinions of people who didn't come here for reasons? So now we're not going to be surveilling them. Like, how do we deal with that concept?
How do we find people if they're not willing to be found?
No, I mean, like, if one of the reasons is it going to be uncovered within the survey process, do you think? The people who decided not to move to Fairfield because for some reason of racial equity, it wasn't a friendly place for them to move. So how do we capture those reasons? Do you think they will be uncovered within the surveilling of all these groups? I'm just curious, like, how do you get that
That's
information?
interesting.
Yeah.
It's, I think in my talks with the interfaith group, it definitely came up that they were not welcome.
Yeah.
So I have that in there, and that's why I was hesitant to identify them with their names and their parishes, because they were very, very candid about what exactly and where the problem lay.
Yeah.
So that would capture that for sure.
Yeah, so that would capture
But
that
if-
bit.
It only captures it though if you're actually in the survey, getting the survey in hands that are people that didn't come to Fair, if you're just.
How do you?
Well, so
people-
one thing that I had a conversation with Lanesia earlier today, and one thing that she reminded me of is they in putting together their task force, their action items, they actually connected with different activists in different communities and talked to them about their experiences as well, and they used some of the the knowledge that they acquired from people outside of town, and that there's nothing really stopping us from that. And to me, that is a natural process of where I would go next after my deep listening with her, because I learned that there are some organizations in the state who are doing this work that may give us some ideas about things that we can do or how to do things. So that might be another way to capture it, like to use the resources of the state when appropriate. Because I know that was something else that came up in our conversation. I had a conversation with Steve earlier this week, and he talked about how he was in contact with a group, and I don't want to misquote me, so Nancy, help me if I don't get this right, who looked at traffic stops statewide. And this is an organization that all they do is look at traffic stops statewide. And they had some thoughts about Fairfield in comparison to other towns as well. So they were already collecting that data. So I think that it's out there, part of our process eventually, and not at this point in time. But that's, I think, one of the other things the kind of things that can get revealed in the deep listening. When you're talking to people and they talk about, I'm working with this agency and these are other people that I'm talking to. We're not going to want to talk to everybody that people are talking to, but in that particular instance, I thought, yes, Steve, you definitely want to talk to them, because they put Fairfield in context, which is what I think you're talking about. We're looking at Fairfield as a town, but we're also looking at it in the context of the state. So
yeah, and we're right next door to Bridgeport. I mean, how do we deal with that?
Well, one thing I was going to add is, and I may be using the term wrong, so my psychologist friends tell me otherwise, deductive reasoning. I mean, like, you can look at the affordable housing conversations that happen in Fairfield, and you might be able to deduce from that. And this is not blanket. I'm not making a statement that everyone that is against affordable housing is racist, but there's a lot of elements, whether implicit or explicit, that we can perhaps deduce. So while we may not be speaking to people who haven't felt welcome because there isn't a certain affordability, accessibility, you can gather from some language, I imagine. I don't know. I'm trying to approach this with an open mind. So it's kind of a backdoor in, but it's one way to capture some of that, even though it's not going to be from the mouths of the people that feel excluded, but it's like you see the situation that's been set, or the
and I think that came up in my
circumstance.
conversation as well. The conversation about Bridgeport specifically came up in my conversation with Fairfield Ubuntu, and they have some close relationships too. So again, that's something that I'll tap into, and he's going to tap into it through her faith. Like, I think, Steve's going to tap into it through the organization that he is in contact with. So I think that is part of the natural progression. And again, I go back to why this idea about deep listening is a great place to start, because that's what's going to give us these little ideas about which directions we need to go in.
Okay.
That's what do you say? How do you put it, Karen? We don't know what we don't know.
We do not know what we do not know.
Okay. Great, thanks. Yep.
Anything else outstanding before so Kathy, you will be putting together your little dictionary of terms, and Ryan and Alex in terms of website and agenda, or I'm sorry, notes, minutes, and Doug, you will get that to the team. And then Karen, Sandra, you're collecting the rest of the deep listening items, including INIs, and we're going to de-identify. And Sandra, anyone else that's outstanding, and whether you're intimately involved with Karen and her process with Doug and Ryan. I think that's sort of, and then if you have resources that you want added, this again is fluid. And we look forward to hearing, the next steps in terms of the survey. January 5th is our next meeting.
So just real quick on that, I'm happy to reach out to, oh my gosh, Lenasia, what's her name?
Lenasia.
I will email her and try to get copies of some of her things. So I'm happy to do that. As far as, creating the survey, we're at a, hey, volunteers, I because I haven't talked to Sonia and Alex there, I am not a quant person.
I think that's where they will. That's where I think that's where I pulled their names into it.
Yeah,
I think I was a step ahead.
Yeah. And I just want to be clear that that's where we'll need some help.
Yeah.
Not that I can't look at it and say, that seems like an open-ended versus closed-ended question, or that seems like a leading question. I could certainly look at what we've done, but we're going to want people who really like data to be involved in that effort. I like conversations, not data. So
Yep.
Anyway, so it's a good time for people to start to raise their hands to say, yes, I'd love to help with that survey.
Alex and Sonia from the beginning have said that's where and Alith, who's not on tonight, I think has some expertise in that area. I may be making that up, but between Sonia and Alex, and if we need to go outside of this group, we can do that. So Gina, anything else until we meet again?
No, I think we got a lot done.
Woo! Go team.
Cool.
Thank you all. Have a very happy, healthy.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Yes. Gina, so moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Karen is seconding. I assume there's no discussion on that and everyone is in favor. All in favor.
Feel better.
All right. Thanks all. Have a great night and
Bye.
happy, healthy.